Okay, so today I'm kind of going to do a different kind of video. I want to share part of my journey and share with you something that took me 37 years to figure out. But it has been a complete game changer for me and my borderline personality disorder. I feel like for the very first time in my life, I have some freedom and I am no longer a borderline, but rather a person who has borderline traits. I am not the disorder. So, as we know, one symptom of borderline personality disorder is identity disturbance, which is one of the symptoms that I did display. Now, for me, my identity disturbance started in childhood. I would say both of my parents would be what you would consider as perfectionists. And I would say that my dad was someone that looked at children as not equals, if that kind of makes sense. So basically, he had an attitude that as a child, you do what you're told and you don't question it. He's the parent, you're the child, and my opinion really didn't matter. If you didn't do something he asked you, or if you didn't do it how he asked, then you would get in trouble. Now, this is just a tiny sliver of my dad's personality. I do have lots of fond memories with him, but there was just always this expectation of having to behave the way he wanted you to and not questioning it. So you can kind of see the perfect storm that brewed in my childhood, okay? I learned from both parents to be a perfectionist, so I did not like to get in trouble. I wanted to do everything the right way the very first time, and that involved acting exactly how they wanted me to behave, not questioning it, not being an outlier, not standing up for my beliefs or what I thought was right. And while I am sure that this made my parents' life easier because, after all, I was normally not a discipline issue, it affected me all the way into adulthood because as a child, I didn't really develop an identity. Like, I was always doing what I was told. So who was I? What kinds of things do I like? What hobbies interest me? What were my beliefs on certain topics? I mean, basically in my 20s, I just mimicked my parents' beliefs and what they trained me up to be. So let's just stop and think about that for a moment. My parents were the ones that I looked to for survival when I was a kid. In a way, at that time in my life, I was helpless. I depended on them for my food and shelter and other things. So in my mind as a child, if I upset my dad by misbehaving, it just meant I was going to have to deal with the consequences that I didn't even fully understand how to process at the time. So you learn to adapt as a child. Like, okay, if I do it like this, then dad won't get mad, mom won't get mad, life will be easier, less stressful. And you do it and do it and do it until you're conditioned. So basically, I would be the version of myself that my parents wanted me to be in order to get my needs met. So what do you think happened when I started dating? I got into relationships that mimicked my childhood instead of being myself with my own interests, my own hobbies, my own beliefs, and being loved for being who I was unconditionally. I would start out every relationship the same. And honestly, it was doomed to fail every single time. So what I would do is be extremely observant in the beginning of a relationship, which is something I believe most people who are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder are. Very, very observant. Also, I had great intuition and I knew how someone felt without them really needing to tell me, which is sometimes a good thing and sometimes a bad thing. So I would quickly figure out exactly what they wanted. And I would think to myself, okay, if I just can act this way, then they will fall in love. And once they are in love, then I can finally start being who I truly am. Because they won't want to leave me because they love me now. Okay, so even talking about that sounds sick and twisted. But as I talk about it, it's real life stuff. And I know I can't be the only person out there that has had to go through this route in order just to feel some type of love. That's why I want to be open and honest about it. Because when you start out relationships like this, you are really setting yourself up for failure. Because the person you date falls in love with a fake version of you. Okay, so I've had 3 serious relationships in life. So let's talk about relationship number 3, because this is the one I was in when I finally realized my pattern and became aware of what I was doing. So all through my 20s and part of my 30s, I kept repeating the pattern, but I didn't understand why my relationships didn't work out. So I met relationship number 3 when I was 33. So yeah, lots of 30s there. And immediately I started the same pattern that I always did. I started the same exact way. Now, at this time, I was still unaware of what borderline personality disorder was, and I had never heard of it, and still, honestly, didn't even recognize that I had a pattern. But I had noticed that I tended to attract the same type of men over and over. But I just hadn't put all of those puzzle pieces together yet on why my relationships failed. Okay, so relationship number 3 starts out no different than the rest. I really like this guy. He would do some of the absolute sweetest things for me. I didn't want to lose that, and I felt like he cared with the amount of effort that he put forth. So I made it my goal to be exactly who he wanted me to be so that I would never lose his love. Sometimes it got exhausting in the beginning because he was always on an adventure 24/7. Okay, and I'm more of a 50-50 person. I love my adventure and wanderlust, but I also love my home and sleep. So where I worked at the time, I made the schedule. And actually, I would purposely put myself on the schedule just so I didn't have to go on some of the things with him because it would exhaust me. And to me, it seemed like saying I had to work was easier than saying, hey, I'm just in my homebody stage and I don't want to go out with you today. No, I couldn't do that because I didn't want to upset him. I didn't want him to get mad. I didn't want him to think that, hey, I wasn't some full throttle adventurous person that was constantly doing something and leave me. I was literally living this lie and I didn't want to be abandoned. Because I felt that if I was abandoned, that would hurt more, which actually is what kept happening because we would go no contact and then I would just spiral. Because I wanted to be loved and it kept getting taken away from me. But that's a whole other video. Okay, so years go by. Yes, literal years. And we went no contact about 50 million times during this time. I don't know the exact amount, but it was a lot. But we would always come back together. Time and time again. Sometimes when we went no contact, I felt a huge relief because honestly, it's like taking your bra off at the end of an exhausting day. It was like, yes, finally, I just get to be me. And in some ways, the no contact happened so much that I just started to realize that he would not abandon me. He would be back, so I was not being abandoned. But there was still this conflict within me because I wanted to be loved, but I was sick and tired of being loved for who I was not. But I had no one to blame but me because I put on this show in the beginning of the relationship that would leave my partner scratching their head. Like, especially when I would flip. I would just mysteriously flip into a new person. So fast forward to when I was around 36. I had finally figured out the pattern and I was tired of playing games. I just wanted to be me and someone to love me for me. But even though I was 36, I didn't know what being me meant. It still took me 2 years to figure out me. I had played the game of life over and over and over, and now I was going to change how I played. And that took some adjusting. I thought I knew me. I mean, after all, I have been me for 36 years at this point. But I was just a collection of the men in my life and what they expected of me, which is kind of dangerous if you want my honest opinion. Okay, so now me and relationship number 3, let's just call him Knucklehead. Okay, so me and Knucklehead, which we are still together to this day, so I get to call him that, and I guess he's my Knucklehead. Anyways, it was about year 4 when I realized he was not going to abandon me, that even though we had to go no contact for a while, we would still end up together. So during the no contact phases, I would figure out who I was, what I liked to do, what gave me energy just to do something. I learned I love astrology. I love making YouTube videos. I learned I love learning new languages, trying new restaurants. I mean, I really had no clue about me and my interest. I learned I love homesteading and making your own tinctures and salves. I learned I just love learning. I love talking to people, learning their stories. So each time he would come back, I stood my ground into who I was. Like, the more it happened, the stronger I got at standing up for what I wanted to do and what my interest was, no matter what his opinion was. Like, for instance, he thought I was crazy when I was telling him that you could actually eat dandelions. He thought they were weeds. Also, how crazy is this, okay? I love all languages, but I specifically started watching YouTube videos on speaking Spanish, and I was teaching myself. I was surprised how quickly I was actually picking up some of it. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with Facebook, okay? I'll be honest about it. But I will get on for a couple of weeks, and then I will take a couple months break. I just kind of always feel like it's wasting my time, and I have stuff to do. Well, at this specific time, I was back on Facebook, and someone had started a girl group in my local area. That's what it was called. And it was a place where women could hang out with other women, and they actually would have a dinner every single month at a local restaurant, and any woman could join. It was good fellowship. So I joined this group, which is very uncomfortable for me, but I pushed through it. And then one day, I kid you not, this really happened. A lady posted that she was going to be teaching beginner Spanish at the local library. She had reserved the room, and that any of the ladies a part of this group could attend. So I began going to a class once a week. My point is, I began to have my own hobbies, my own interests, things that were exclusively mine, no one else's, and that felt liberating to me. Like, I am finally me. And what is crazy is my knucklehead accepted me. He didn't abandon me. I reflected on it, and even if he had abandoned me, it was worth it, because for the first time in my life, I felt like I was being authentic to who I was. I don't know if this comes with age or just enough lessons that you've learned in life where you just can't stand being fake any longer, that you just have to bust out of your shell and tell the world, this is who I am. And honestly, I don't care what your opinion is of me, because I'm doing me. Having my own hobbies, my own interests, my own beliefs has helped me with this particular symptom of borderline personality disorder. You know, I'm not hanging on to every little thread of what my boyfriend says. He can go an hour without texting me back, and you know why? Because I'm out doing my own thing, investing in myself. Part of me is sad that it took so long to stand up for myself, but honestly, it's more rewarding because I know how long I struggled with it. And to overcome it, it is a huge dopamine rush. I'm not constantly checking my phone to see if he's looked at my text. Nope, I'm outside gardening or foraging, or I'm inside making my next YouTube video. And what is interesting, whenever I do go back to my phone hours later after I'm finished with me, I usually have a text. So my advice to borderlines is take time to figure out who you really are and what you like to do, what your beliefs are. Join classes and clubs where you get interaction with others. Get a hobby where you can concentrate on it and forget about your relationship. It frees up so much, and it frees you. As always, if you have borderline personality disorder or you love someone with it and you need to talk, feel free to message me. I will leave my email in the description. Now, I do receive quite a bit of emails, and I actually do talk to people locally, so it may take me some time to get to the email. Plus, now I'm doing my own hobbies and interests and actually enjoying my life. So just please be patient with me. But I do try to answer each and every one of you because I want you to know someone is here for you. Also, I put out videos every Sunday about borderline personality disorder. You don't have to like or subscribe or comment or share for that matter because I'll be here no matter what. Until next time, my little buttercups. Mwah.